Hey guys, this is John from US Dash Camera. Today got a review on the new A129 Plus Duo. Now it has been out for several months at least now. I've actually had this one for a while. Viofo did reach out and send this to me for a review, so I'd like to thank them for reaching out to me. If you guys aren't aware, there are several A129 models, and I got a lot of similar questions because there was the A119 originally, and they're on version 3 of that, not including the Pro and G versions, but right now they're on the A119 V3, and people constantly ask if there's a 2-channel version of that, and that's basically what this A129 model is. Now this is actually the 3rd version of the A129 also. There was a original A129 Duo, and then a single channel version actually. The difference between this and the A119, if you get the single channel version, the design is slightly different. It seems higher quality, but it also has Wi-Fi, so that's one benefit of this. With Wi-Fi, there is an app you can use to view your files wirelessly, and then you can transfer and save your video files to your phone wirelessly in case you need to save some sample footage. Now after the original A129 came out, they released a Pro model, and that one has 4K in the front and 1080p in the rear. So now this one is sort of an intermediate model between the original and the Pro 4K model, but I think this might actually be replacing the original because I think the price is the same at $180. You can see here though, this one has Quad HD in the front and Full HD in the rear. The original A129 was only Full HD in the front and rear, which is 1080p. So this says 1440p in the front, 1080p in the rear. And you can see it does use Sony Starvis image sensors, and just like the other A129s, it does have Wi-Fi with app support. Now if you want to use the parking mode, you are going to need to buy the hardwiring kit separately. I will talk a little bit about the parking mode, but I do not have the cable for this testing, but it's pretty simple, so I'll cover that in a little bit. So let's take a look at the camera itself. It looks exactly like the other A129 models, except here you can see it says Quad HD. So when it's on, you can stop the recording, access the menu, you can turn the microphone on or off there, view your files here, and lock current files with this big red button in the middle. You can see here on the side there is a reset button, which I did have to use after I was having some trouble with mine where it wasn't recording. It would constantly stop the recording and beep constantly, and to the point that it did it all the time. Then I reset it and updated the firmware, and we're going to talk about the firmware because that's a little different. So there you can see that's where the microphone is and the micro SD card slot. The other side we got the power input, audio video out, and the rear camera cable, which you can see is a proprietary connector. It's not the same as this standard mini USB. But in addition to being able to power it there, just like the other A129 models, the mounting plate actually allows you to connect the cable to that, and then if you want to ever remove this from the base, you would still have to remove the rear camera, but then you don't have to remove the power cable, so it makes it a little bit easier. If you get the single channel version, that means you don't have any cable to remove. You just slide this off. So in regards to video quality, it's going to be very similar to the A129. Of course, with the 1440p in the front, it's going to be closer to the A119, which does have 1440p also. But I think a lot of people are thinking that the A119 V3 actually still has a little bit better picture quality. But of course, this does have to deal with the rear camera. Now, the interesting part about the rear camera on this is it has its own chipset. So it's basically rendering its own video footage. So it does get slightly better detail in the rear camera from the original A129 or the Pro model. It's only a slight difference though, so I would say if you already own the original A129 Duo, it's probably not really worth upgrading. At this time at least, it's not that huge of an improvement. But if you don't have this camera or the original one and you were looking at either of them, then this one would be the model to get. Now I'll show a quick comparison night and day of the A119 V3 versus the A129 Plus Duo, and I'll let you guys be the judge of it. Now, since the rear camera has its own chipset, the unique thing about this camera is if you want to upgrade the firmware, there's actually firmware for both the front and rear camera. And to install the firmware, you should really follow the instructions. I'll post a link down in the description to where you can download the firmware. That was something I did when I was having issues with the camera stopping recording. After resetting it, it worked fine, but I figured I should update the firmware also. And one thing I forgot to do is to format the memory card in FAT32 like the instructions say. Now, normally on Windows, if you format a memory card that's over 32 gigabytes, it'll format it in a different format. So if you format a 32 gigabyte card, it will automatically be in FAT32. There is software you can use to format larger memory cards in FAT32, but for me the easier thing was just to stick a 32 gigabyte card into my computer, format it to FAT32, and then drag and drop those 3 files onto the memory card. And then, as you can see in the instructions, after it installs the front camera firmware, then you have to hold the far right button down, or you just press it once and it starts uploading the firmware to the rear camera. Now, because the rear camera is different from the previous A129 models, I believe the rear camera cable is different also. So if you have one of those and you install or upgrade to this one, you will need to use the new rear camera cable. So with the parking mode, you're still getting the improved parking mode 2.0 from Viofo, which does offer automatic buffered parking, which means, as you can see here, the camera will sense motion, and instead of recording immediately after it senses the motion, it actually saves that 5 or 10 seconds leading up to the motion detection, and then 10 or so seconds after, or until the motion stops. And that's what buffered recording means. Right now, typically only higher end cameras from Korea have it. I believe Viofo is currently the only Chinese company that has buffered parking mode like this. Now, one thing I don't like about the parking feature on this camera though is there's no timer functionality. Both Blackview and ThinkWare offer a timer functionality, so while all three will cut the power to the camera if your battery is getting too low with their respective hardwiring kits, I like having the timer, because with the timer you could set it to, say, 6 or 12 hours if you know you're not going to be parked somewhere in public for longer than those periods of time. When I get home, I park in a private garage, and oftentimes a home security camera is a better option if you want to record your car while it's parked in a garage. So I'd really like the ability to cut the power off automatically with a timer, so I'm not constantly draining my car battery to 12 volts or whatever the low voltage threshold is, because it technically, after a while, is more likely to lower the lifespan of your car battery. But it is nice to see that Viofo did add the new buffered parking mode, and I hope to see a 3.0 sometime soon. So guys, overall I think this is another good product from Viofo. Viofo is one of my 3 favorite dashcam companies. They're not the most high-tech out there, but they typically have some of the best video quality in their cameras, and while they don't have as advanced parking mode features as Blackview or Thinkware, they are typically much cheaper, much more affordable, and I would argue a good value for the price you pay for them too. So I hope this video is helpful for you guys. I'll provide links down in the description to my other Viofo reviews, give you a chance to see the video quality of those other models that I didn't directly compare because I don't have them all anymore, other than the A119 V3. Again, check down in the description to those video reviews. I'll provide affiliate links down in the description. So guys, as usual, drive safe, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.